Good morning, everybody. How are you all? Are you good? I see some thumbs up. More thumbs up. Very good. The new day. Just to be curious, did you start your day with writing 3 things down that you feel grateful for? No. You did it, Katrina. Fantastic. Todd did it. Very good. Did you think about impermanence and death? No. Yes. No. Yes, a very big yes from Isabel. Does it help? Does it help you to set a tone for the day when you do that? I see some yes. Yeah. These are practices, right? Practice means that in the beginning we forget because we are not used to it. Somebody says the Bodhisattva vows. You remember the Bodhisattva vows this morning. That's fantastic. So in the beginning, it is not our habit to do so. It is our habit to forget. So even if we think at night, oh yeah, I'll do that, or during the teachings, you might think, oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to try to do that. Then we forget. And then you get a reminder and you think, oh yeah, I should do that. And if you have no habit, you most likely forget again, So if you feel that there is some use practicing these, make yourself a reminder, hang a note on your fridge or hang a note above your bed where you can see it when you wake up so that you bring it to your mind, and then engage in it. And when we engage in it, we might have resistance and we don't like it and nothing is coming to mind and there is so much else to do today and I really don't have time to think about these kind of things. I'll do it later. We have many excuses. So somehow you have to find your way through that and start anyway. And if it is really difficult, think about one thing that you feel grateful for instead of 3 and start your practice there. But I know that people who do it, they have great benefit in this day, especially if you're for depression and for being down and for being hard on yourself. This practice is really uplifting and can even help you to get into a totally different place in your mind. And Katrina is doing the 4 immeasurables for you. That's which is very moving, experience as being very moving. So that's great, So that is also something that you can do. You take either you do it yourself, you take one of the recordings and you just take the meditation and you do that and set your motivation for the day like that. Okay. So I hope everyone is here now, that we can start with setting up a good motivation and first of all, letting the mind relax in the present moment. That we make space in our mind really for just being in this session, that whatever else is going on in our life, that we let it go. We cannot change anything about that. We cannot prepare anything at the moment for that. So we stop thinking about it. And we do that by focusing the mind on the body. And every time you breathe out, you say to yourself, let it go. It is okay to let it go. And then let your breath return to normal. And let your mind settle in further. Being aware of your body. Letting your mind rest on your body in the present moment. And then set your motivation for today, especially for this session. And for this, recall your own aspirations. Why you are participating in this course. And with that, formulate your motivation. And then let that motivation merge with your mind, with your heart. And then we can start a session. So yesterday we talked about how we can set up a practice, or what kind of attributes are important for the practice. And so we talked about developing mindfulness in relation to the body, the breath, our feelings, and the mind itself. And if you are interested in how to do that, there are many mindfulness practices around, many teachers who like to teach that. There are many books about that, so it's always good to get more information if you feel that this is something that you like to do. And then we spoke about setting the intention for the day or for an activity. And by setting the intention, we direct the mind. And we saw that if we do not bring some conscious awareness to the intention, then our intention normally comes from attachment or aversion. By setting a conscious intention, we make that a little bit more than just about ourselves, just about our own benefit. And if you can, also not just about this life, So the broader you can make the intention, the further away you can make the intention, also the results of whatever you're doing becomes in accordance with that. And then we spoke about the 4 immeasurable thoughts, and we did a meditation on that. And when we do meditation we will do probably tomorrow, definitely tomorrow, on loving kindness and on the Tonglang, we will use certain principles of how we practice the 4 immeasurables within the meditations that we are doing then. And then we didn't say too much about the dedication. I think I forgot that, but it is always good at the end of your activity that you have done then to dedicate the merits, all the positive energy that you have gathered towards whatever you aspire for. They say that it's like, when you're putting your money in your bank so that you get interest. And the longer the money is in the bank, the more interest you get. So when you dedicate the merit, somehow the merit gets the potential to increase more and more. And so then we also talked about practicing self-compassion in relation to difficult or painful feelings. And what we still, and I hope that you get some benefit from that. For me, that was a very key practice that due to my upbringing, I didn't know what to do with painful feelings, and I thought it was just me and everybody knows what to do with it. But the more I talk about it, the more I can see that actually many people do not know how to be with painful feelings. So that is a skill that you can learn. And the better that you know that skill, knowing not just intellectually, but in your heart, in your gut, if you really can take painful feelings as just part of reality, you're not scared of it, you're not running away from it, it becomes huge food for transformation, for transforming the mind, for developing qualities in the mind. And so I still had to talk a little bit about people pleasers. So I'll start with that today, and then after that, we go into at all the other levels where we can practice in order to develop self-compassion. Being with painful feelings is only one aspect of developing self-compassion. So people pleasers are people who have a lot of empathy and who are very happy to help others, but they often do not take care of their own needs very well. So they give and they give and they give, and they're happy to give and they're happy to see other people getting happy. But at a certain point, there might be a point that they start feeling like, why didn't they say thank you to me? Why didn't they acknowledge what I did? It is like they do not appreciate me, or you feel not respected, or you feel not loved, and there is some kind of hurt that goes with it. Sometimes it can even be that while you are given, deep down there is some hurt, but you do not pay any attention to that. So if you recognize it in your own mind, that means that when you give, you do not give unconditionally. You give wanting something to come back, even if it is a little bit of appreciation, a little bit of respect, a little bit of acknowledgement. You know, but if you are waiting for something to come back, although you might have the feeling you're giving very selflessly, deep down there is a self waiting for something to come back. So if you recognize that, being a people pleaser is a survival mechanism for many people, especially for what they call the empath, you know, the one who already, when they are born, they can naturally tune into what is going on for other people. They can naturally tune into the suffering that other people experience, the needs that other people have. And so then when they come in a stressful situation, they often go into, instead of thinking, what do I need? They go into, how can I help the other person? How can I give the other person what they need? And you can do that intuitively. You can do that without any other reason than that you are in a stressful situation. Or it can also be that your caregivers, your caretakers are somehow they have expectations of you, that you make them happy. And in order to make them happy, they expect you to do this and this and this. And so you might have other wishes, but due to your empathy, you give up your own wishes. Maybe also due to the fear that if you do not give the other person what they want, they might not love you, they might reject you, they might punish you, you know, so you give up what you need in order to please the other person. So if you do that, then you abandon certain needs in yourself. And then in dependence upon that, you might start believing that these needs is something that is not good. These needs is something that do not deserve any attention. These needs are not worthy. These needs are not good enough. These needs are not lovable. So the needs is an aspect of your mind, right? And you start thinking part of you is not good enough. And so then in order to, that's very painful if you have that impression. And so then you feel like, oh, I better don't show that to anyone, because when I show it, they won't love it. And then I'm hurt even more. You recognize this? And so when you get that experience over and over again, it starts to feel like there is something inherently not good enough in you, not lovable. And so if you have a mindset like that and you meet the Mahayana teachings in which we work for the welfare of others, you might feel like, wow, that's perfect for me because I know how to do that, you know, especially if you're not aware about that whole, how your mind works. If you haven't seen that people pleaser aspect of you and the needs that are underlying to that. So you think, wow, that is fantastic. And you start engaging in the Mahayana. And you're especially attracted to pleasing others, giving others what they need, you know. And so you keep repeating your survival mode over and over again. till at a certain point you feel like, no, something is not right. You know, this feels too much for me. This feels too difficult for me. This is too painful for me. And you might turn your back to Buddhism or to Mahayana Buddhism. So I would say there is a huge difference between the way we practice Mahayana Buddhism in a healthy, proper way, and the way where we are coming from when we are people pleasers and we benefit others in order to please them. So when we are people pleasers, where we are coming from, often we come from the fear that we are not lovable, that we are not likable, that we're not good enough, that we do not deserve, you know, and we push away part of us. We renounce part of us. We think we are renouncing part of us, and we just give selflessly. This is how it can feel. But where we're actually coming from is from a place of fear, fear of rejection. So if we want to develop a fearless heart, we have to look at that fear, no? If we want to develop our full potential, we somehow have to find a way to let go of the fear. So when we practice Mahayana Buddhism, then we are not coming from a place of fear. We're coming from a place of genuine loving kindness and compassion, which is based on loving kindness and compassion for yourself. Loving kindness and compassion accepts you fully as you are. Loving kindness and compassion for yourself doesn't think, well, I love this part of me, but I do not love this part of me. Yeah? That is a biased loving kindness and compassion. That's not really what we want to develop. We want to develop a loving kindness and compassion that can see each and every aspect of you and can see the goodness in each and every aspect of you, and that totally embraces all these aspects of you. And only on the basis of that can we then open up to other sentient beings and practice loving kindness and compassion for all the aspects of them. So if you are a people pleaser and you do want to practice Mahayana Buddhism, I think you first need to identify the aspects in yourself that you have abandoned at one stage in your life. And then you need to reevaluate your judgment about the aspects. You know, there is something that you push away and you think that part of me is not good enough. You know, sometimes as children, we get shamed about certain aspects of ourselves, or we get reactions so that we feel guilty about certain aspects of ourselves, or we just feel maybe even scared for certain aspects of ourselves. So you have to look into that. What is that? And then reevaluate the judgment that you have about the aspects and check, you know, was that accurate, what I thought about it? And then I think when you start doing that, a lot of unpleasant feelings can come up with that. They come up with the judgment that you have given unto aspects of yourself, but they come also up because there are some unseen aspects of you. And I think they are related to your needs, deep-seated needs. And so when needs are not met when you were a little child, it is a very, very painful. And then you abandon these needs in order to survive, and that is also painful. So you have to somehow reintegrate them into your psychic and see that there is nothing wrong with them. And so you digest all these unpleasant feelings. You connect with the needs that are underneath, the need to be loved, the need to be appreciated, the need to be seen. Very important for a child to have a healthy development. And so when you had caretakers who couldn't give you that for whatever reason, you have to start giving that to yourself. You have to heal that yourself. And so then you can visualize that you give that to yourself. When you start connecting with your needs and you get this image of a 3-year-old little boy or little girl that wanted to hear something from mom or dad, and that never came, then you say that to that child. And you give that child whatever confirmation it needs to feel good about itself. Right? So you heal the people pleaser, and you do not, so that you can act, so that you can start giving to others, not because you need something, but because you come from a place where your needs are fulfilled. You don't have any needs. So then you can give freely. Then if people don't say thank you, it doesn't matter, because you just like to give. All right, does that make sense? I know there were some people yesterday who said, well, I think it was, let me see if he's here. Subu, you asked yesterday about that. Is that helpful? Can you do something with that? Okay, maybe you need to digest a little bit. So that is in relation to painful feelings, and sometimes when you have a lot of child trauma, you might want to reach out to someone who can help you to reconnect with these painful experiences and to digest them properly before you really go enthusiastically into the Mahayana path. That's up to you to decide. Okay, so then let's look further into what else can we do in order to develop self-compassion. How can we have an attitude towards ourselves so that we take care of ourselves in a very mature way, not just I want to be happy now and I want to be free of suffering now. No, we look into the big picture. So Buddha said, what is the cause of suffering? We want to be free from suffering. What is the cause of suffering? The cause of suffering is karma and delusions. So we look in both of them to find all the ways that we can free ourselves from the cause of suffering, because that is what self-compassion is. True? So we talked about 3 types of suffering. The first was the suffering of suffering, the painful suffering. So when we have the painful experience, you know now how to be with these unpleasant feelings that arise. But then you can say, what was the cause for this? How did I create that? And then we said the cause for experiencing the suffering of suffering is engaging in the 10 non-virtuous actions, the actions that harm others. What we have done to others comes back to us. So we said abstaining from the 10 non-virtuous actions is a way to stop creating the suffering of suffering. And then you can say, and then how do I, you do not want to suffer, you want to have pleasant feelings. How do I create the causes for pleasant feelings? So if we want to have more pleasant feelings, we need to create virtuous actions. Virtuous actions are actions that are of benefit to others. So we engage in the 10 virtuous actions, which are opposite as of the 10 non-virtuous actions. So instead of killing, we start engaging in saving lives. And that means even, you observe that you don't step on little insects. You try, when you see a little animal in problems, you try to help them. Maybe you are a nurse and you are helping human beings in the hospital, with their illnesses. And so this is how you can save lives. And then instead of stealing, taking things that haven't been given to us, we give. Giving is a virtuous action. We respect others' property. We respect relationships. We speak truthfully. We use pleasant words. We bring people together instead of dividing them. And we talk mainly about meaningful things, instead of gossiping. And so we direct our mind by wishing others to be happy and by rejoicing in others' possessions. And we study about the nature of reality. That is how we can engage in virtuous actions. And so these actions create the causes for us to experience pleasant feelings or have pleasant experiences in the future. But if you look into these activities, and you engage in them, you can see that even just engaging in these activities will give you pleasant feelings in the present moment while you engage in that activity. If you really give somebody something, even presents, when we give presents to people, it makes us feel happy, It's nice to give something away. It is nice to help others. It comes with feeling good about yourself. So what stops us from creating virtuous actions is that we are often so distracted with the mind, so caught up in what we are going to expect somewhere in the future, or we are so still caught up in what has happened to us in the past. When we are in these states of mind, it is extremely difficult to practice virtuous actions, because virtuous actions, they do not come so natural for us. When we are not with our awareness in the present moment, we are in the past, we are in the future. What is determining the state of our mind is our delusions, our attachment and our aversion, and whatever else comes from that. We cannot create virtuous actions coming from attachment and aversion. So to create virtue, and besides that, we're not really habituated to creating virtuous actions. We are more habituated to creating non-virtuous actions. They come much easier. So we need to put some effort in that. We need to put some mindfulness in that, some conscious effort to create virtuous actions. The most simple way to create, it is not simple, but it doesn't require so much thinking when you just work for the benefit of others. When you forget about everything for yourself, you're focused upon the others, and you work for their benefit, you know, then you cut through your own crap and you just open your heart and do what is needed for the bigger good. And that is also a way to practice virtue. So that in relation to our actions, right? We observe our actions. Instead of just following our feelings, which means following our attachment and aversion, we focus on our actions. What kind of actions am I actually doing? You know, following your feelings is not a really good compass. You know, that always takes you to non-virtue. That always creates the causes for suffering. So bring your awareness to your actions. And then what we also suffer from is, or the other cause for our suffering is our delusions, right? So suffering comes from the result of our actions, and suffering comes from the delusions. And the delusions, you know, we have unpleasant experiences, and in dependence on that, the delusions get activated. And then we think about it, and we think about it. And the event already has passed, but we haven't let it go yet because we do not know how to be with these unpleasant feelings. So how do we lessen the delusions? And I think when we experience something unpleasant, that we say, okay, I'll take it. I'll embrace that. I'll feel that. I process that. Thank you very much. And when we experience something pleasant, we, instead of wanting more, you know, and having the mind going totally crazy because it gives you so much excitement or maybe anxiety, you learn to let go. You know, that was very nice. I hope it comes back in the future, but if it doesn't, I'm also fine. So that is a way to lessen the delusions, right? But then, of course, still delusions come up. Attachment is still there. Aversion is still there. We are so habituated to that. So when you get caught into these delusions, you can start, you can apply certain tools that are going to help you to lessen to the delusions. One way of how Tibetan Buddhism, you know, they like to put everything into, they're very systematic in how they approach the mind. So they say, when the delusions arise in the mind, you contemplate the disadvantages of the delusions and the disadvantages of following the delusions. And you contemplate the advantages of applying the antidote to the delusions. Right? So you have to, they look so real. They look so that you have to follow them. So it will take some time to talk to yourself and say, no, I'm not going to do that. That's just, I don't have to follow that. I have a choice here. Hi, everyone. So sorry that we lost you or you lost us. I think they must have done something somewhere on the internet. I hope you all stayed and that you didn't leave. So we're just going to continue how to apply general antidotes to the delusions, right? That's where I was. And whoever put in a question before, I'm not seeing them anymore. So please do that again. So the general antidotes to the delusions, and I already have mentioned that before, is bringing the mind to the present moment, bringing the mind to the body, bringing the mind to the breath. When the mind is in the present moment, the delusions, delusions, when they come up, they take us away from the present moment. So when you stay in the present moment, you stay connected. The delusions, they try, they come up, and you say, I keep feeling what is going on in my body. I keep reconnecting with my body. Yes, I can see that the delusions are coming and that the delusions want to take me away, but I do not have to follow them. So practicing mindfulness can be very useful to generate, to train yourself in that skill. And then another way of counteracting the delusions is by accepting the delusions and being non-judgmental with whatever arises in the mind. When unpleasant feelings arise in the mind, often the mind starts to chatter, starts to, comes with a judgment about the other person, comes with a judgment about your own reaction, starts beating yourself up, starts to talk badly about the other person. What if you just accept, all right, causes and conditions came together for me to experience this. Let me just first experience this. Let me accept what happened. That already doesn't fuel the emotions, the delusions more than needed. And then when unpleasant feelings arise, adopt this kind self-talk. Remember that you're not alone, that it is not about you, that it is just an experience that is passing. And delusions are in the mind. They often tell us stories that appear really true. Somebody does something to us and it appears to us that, sometimes we start to project all kinds of horrible motivations coming from their side and how they want to hurt us, and they do this all intentionally, and so challenge that belief. Is that really true? Delusions come from the self-grasping mind. The self-grasping mind is a mind which is grasping at something that in actuality doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the way it appears to us. So there is a form of deception within how we believe we ourselves exists. And then attachment and aversion arises in dependence on that. So within attachment and aversion, there is also a kind of deception. Things appear to be really bad or really horrible or really fantastic. But we should wonder if anything can really exist like that. And then you can contemplate on the fact that if you keep engaging with these disturbing emotions, you disturb your mind. I think when you do that a lot, they can drive you really mad. If you think about mental illness, this is where mental illness comes from. And to a certain degree, we are all mentally ill. We are all mentally very unhealthy. But then if you exaggerate that tendency that the mind has, and you strongly believe in it, then depression, anxiety, psychosis, maybe even schizophrenia is very, very, you can develop that. So what also can help when there are a lot of disturbing emotions is that you step back and try to see the situation from a different perspective. We only see our own perspective, and we believe our perspective is correct and is the only way of looking at it, and everybody else sees the same thing. But if you even imagine that you put yourself in the shoes, maybe a strain, maybe when you have a conflict with someone, you imagine that you put yourself in the shoes of a stranger who comes in and who observes the conflict. What is the stranger seeing? And it is not about right and wrong, but it is about how do I get away from my own delusions? How do I get away from belief in these delusions that they are right? So then what we also can do is remember the nature of the mind. The nature which is clear and knowing. And how things arise in the mind and dissolve back into the mind. And how whatever arises is not the mind itself. So when anger arises in my mind, when I believe in my anger, I can say, I am so angry, and I feel I am so angry. But if I say, well, anger arises in the mind, anger is not the mind itself. The mind is also not anger. Anger is something that arises in the mind and dissolves back into the mind. The anger is not who I am. It is something that is coming and going due to many causes and conditions. So we're not suppressing our anger. We're also trying not to fuel our anger. When anger has been triggered, we need to let it pass. Step back from it and let it pass. Don't try to push it away. It's not good to be angry. Yeah, it is not good to be angry, but once the anger has been triggered, it is very good to accept that and to see it for what it is, but then not to fuel it so that it can arise in the mind and dissolve back into the mind. Okay, so that's what we can do in general with the disturbing emotions. And I think today I'll skip the journaling because we have so many things still to cover, and I really want to go this afternoon into how we can start working for the benefit of others, that we have finished how we do the self-compassion. So we do have a little bit of discussion at the end. So we know some general antidotes that we can apply to the delusions when the mind is disturbed. And then we can think about the antidotes that we can apply to specific delusions. And the main ones are attachment and anger, or attachment and aversion. Aversion and anger, they're very close, they're very related to each other. So with both, you first think about the disadvantages of these delusions. So each delusion has their own disadvantages. So if we start with attachment, how does attachment appear to us? Attachment appears as that's what is going to get us what we need or what we want. Right? If we want something, attachment is taking us there. Sometimes we start walking towards something that we want. We're not even aware that we're doing it. Right? That is the energy of attachment. So attachment appears as something very good, because when we get what we want, we feel happy. But if we start investigating the nature of attachment, then when we follow attachment, whatever we experience is never bringing us satisfaction. Whatever we experience, there is always still something missing. It's not completely perfect. When we follow attachment often, we get a kind of empty feeling, Oh, what shall I do today to make myself happy? Oh, I'll go shopping and I'll have a coffee and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then at the end of the day, you feel like, nothing has really touched your heart inside. And so if that is the way that you live your life, at a certain point, you feel that you feel empty. It's meaningless. Just getting what you want. In Tibetan Buddhism, the lamas, the teachers, they say, well, that's what an animal does. They get what they want. They move away from what they don't want. If that is all you're doing, how did you make your life better than the life of an animal? Right? This is how ignorant we are if that is the only thing we are doing. So due to attachment, we take this body, right? The cause that we take rebirth again and again is the mind of craving, the mind of attachment. And so all the problems that we experience in dependence on the body comes from attachment. All the disease that we experience comes from attachment. We think it gives us what we need, but if we follow attachment, it makes us sick. And so what attachment does is it brings us more comfort, right? I don't know if you look into, especially in the West, but I think India is following very quickly, our attitude towards material comfort. There is always something better to get, always something more beautiful. And so we go out and get the best again and again and again and again. And the people who produce all our stuff, they know that. And so they're not going to give you the best today, they keep improving their products, which means that you keep buying because you think, well, when I have more comfort, I'm going to be more happy. But His Holiness says there is no end to comfort. When are we going to say it's enough? There's always going to be a better mattress, a better couch, a better pots to cook in, better stove, there is always better. But when is it going to be enough? Because there's no end to comfort. There is no end to comfort also because when we have something, in the beginning we think, oh, this is wonderful, this is fantastic, and I can do this and this and this. And then we get habituated to it because that is what the mind does. When we are participating or living in a certain way, we get used to it. Then you want a new stimulus that you feel like, oh, this is fantastic. So you want more comfort. You want something new. But that will be the same thing. You have something new and that is exciting for a little while, and then it goes down again. You know, they have done a lot of research with people who won money in the lottery, for instance. And they get $100,000, $1 million, however much dollars, and then say, do these people really become more happy having this money? And in the first few months, yes, they feel more happy. And then it goes down, and it goes back to the level where they are at before they won the money. Money, wealth, comfort cannot take us to a higher level of happiness for a long period of time. It is something that is just coming and going. We get used to it, and then the first instance of excitement and happiness has become normal again. And then we think, I need something new, you know, a new couch, a new stove, a new this, a new that, to get that boost of excitement or feeling good. You know, so this is worthwhile, I think, to contemplate on. It saves you a lot of money, and it saves the environment. And if you really can be content with what you have, it makes you even more happy and more connected to reality as it is. So when we have strong desire, then we can see that many problems can come. You know, when my desire, my attachment is very strong, then when I do not get what I want, the anger that comes is also very strong. Right? Sometimes we can change into little 2-year-olds when we don't get what we want. You know, we start throwing tantrums like they do. So that's because there is strong attachment, wanting something. And also, you know, if you suffer from jealousy, if there is a lot of attachment, also the jealousy is very strong. So if we have strong desire for an object, then we are very unhappy when we can't be close to it. And if we follow desire, we can also see how easily that leads to addiction. Right? We want more and we want to do it again. I want to do it again. Little children, they say, one more time, mommy. Do one more time, mommy. And then mommy does it one more time and they say, one more time, mommy. You know, not being able to let go because
I'm back. After the baby says.
What?
We lost you after the baby says one more time, mommy.
Oh, one more time, mommy. Okay. I hear that you lost me somewhere. Let me see if I'm still recording. One more time, mommy, right? Philippa says that you lost me there. So if we have, did I say if we have strong desire, we also have strong anger when we don't get what we want? Yeah, that one I did. And that we have strong jealousy. And if we cannot get close to the object or to the person where we want to be, we become very unhappy. And also when we look into desire, then, or did I say all that? Addiction, did I talk about that? Yes? Okay. So we can see how many people are addicted in the world, right? one more, one more, one more. And then also desire is the cause for disease. I already mentioned that, which leads to, you know, when we have mental disease, when we have physical disease, it both makes us unhappy. So in Buddhism, we say attachment is the cause for suffering. Attachment is not the same as pleasant feelings, right? Pleasant feelings, when they arise, you should fully enjoy them because they're the result of your good actions. But what you do not want to do is that the mind comes up and says, I want more. I want to do this again. You know, that is what makes you unhappy. The pleasant feelings are totally fine. You know, and create a lot of causes for more pleasant feelings, that's all fine. But stop yourself from getting after them. So how do we practice the antidote to attachment? There are two main antidotes. One is practicing contentment. And the other one is practicing or reflecting on impermanence and death. And if you can remember when we spoke about the 8 worldly concerns, you know, which is the main thing that our attachment is after. The antidote to that was to reflect on the fact that we're not going to live forever. The antidote is reflecting on impermanence and death. We are not going to be around forever. The objects are not going to be forever. The feelings that arise in the mind, they're not going to be forever. All of that is impermanent. And when we reflect on impermanence, you know, we don't have to say necessarily, oh, no, I shouldn't follow my attachment. Oh, no. But when we meditate on impermanence and death, at a certain point, the mind starts to change and naturally stops following attachment. Because somehow it helps you to get to a place that you can see that it is meaningless, you can see that it is causing you trouble, you can see that it is not serving you. You know, it appears so strong that it is helping you, but when you meditate on impermanence and death, you can see, no, it's not. It's really not. And so then practicing contentment is being content with living comfortably. That's fine, you know, but keep it simple. Keep it simple. So then a little bit about anger. Time goes so fast. I still want to do a few more things. So thinking about the disadvantages from anger, you know, anger appears as our protector. Anger appears as that which is going to separate us from suffering. That's the appearance of the delusion. And then we have to check, does anger really free us from suffering? How do we feel when anger is in the mind? Right? Most people suffer when anger is in the mind. They feel very unhappy with themselves. They feel very unhappy. Anger helps to, you know, I'm not talking about that one initial reaction when there is an acute danger to your life and you separate yourself from that. That is a very instinctive reaction. Yes, there is an aversion for experiencing that, but normally after that, the mind is not upset, not doing anything, right? Oh, wow, that boss almost got me, but I'm fine. But anger is like, oh, that boss, and how could the boss do that? And the bus driver should have done. The anger keeps going after the event. Aversion keeps going after the event. sometimes years after. And so what anger and aversion actually does is that unpleasant feeling that arises due to experiencing, as a result of it is an experience in itself. So anger, rewind. So an unpleasant feeling arises. Somebody hurts you deeply. An unpleasant feeling arises. You feel totally hurt, Then aversion and anger is an attempt not to feel that feeling, not to feel that hurt. It is an attempt to get rid of that hurt. And if you start thinking like that, it's totally unrealistic, It's like, well, the hurt is already there. How can you get rid of it? By feeling it. But anger tries to push it away, it tries to blame the other person, tries to do things to get away from that feeling, denies it, all kinds of, we separate from it. That is what anger does. It builds walls, either within oneself or within relationships. And so it makes the mind very unhappy. When unpleasant feelings are there and we blame somebody else for them, for that, we can become very vicious and very, wishing them to suffer in a very awful way. We can become cruel, we can become violent. All that comes from not being able to process the hurt that we are feeling. And so when we use that way of reacting, then we create a lot of imprints in the mind, and then we create the causes and conditions to experience it again and again and again. We know that when anger is in the mind, we scare people. Sometimes you can have a good relationship for many years, and you have one explosion of anger and relationship finished. The other person is too scared to be with you. Right? This is the destruction that anger can do. Anger also, when we are angry at other people, the fear that they experience somehow leaves imprints in our mind to experience that kind of fear in the future. So I'm not going to manage to do this all. I'll have to finish that this afternoon. So what is the antidote to anger? There are two main antidotes, because anger is the mind that wants to harm. Right? There is a harmful intent there. So the antidote to that aspect of anger is the mind of loving kindness. If I feel very angry with a person, I have the tendency to generate a mind that wants to harm that other person or wants to see that other person suffer. And so if I can generate a mind that thinks, I want you to be happy, then that anger cannot stay in the mind, because the mind that I generate consciously is totally opposing that anger. It somehow cancels the anger. So that is one thing that we can do, practicing loving kindness. And then the other antidote is that we practice patience, because the mind of anger is a mind that is disturbed by harm. So the mind of patience is the mind that is undisturbed by harm. And so how do we do that? We normally do that in meditation, on the cushion, by reflecting on things that have happened, and then by thinking how we can do things differently so that they don't upset us so much, how we can view the situation in a different way so that they don't upset us too much. So this is what we all can do. in order to practice self-compassion, in order to free ourselves from suffering. We protect ourselves from the delusions. We protect ourselves from creating negative actions that are going to lead to suffering. And instead of that, we engage in positive actions that are going to lead to happiness. And so then I want to say a little bit more about the suffering of conditioned existence and how to present that, but I will do that this afternoon. All right, otherwise it's going to be too much. You're going to be totally overloaded. Is that all right? I saw there are a few questions. I'll have a look at that when you guys are in the discussion. And I'll try to find the questions from the previous, before we got that break. So for the discussion, I have two questions. And I'm just going to look it up on my sheet. Here it is. And put it for you in the chat box. So the questions are, what beliefs do you have about yourself that you're not happy with? And what needs are underlying? And then if you can get to that, you can say, how can I give myself these needs? How can I take care of that myself? And the second question is, which of the tools to subdue and transform your mind that have been discussed so far resonate most with you? And how are you going to implement them in your daily life? And I think we can do 12 minutes. All right, is everyone clear about the questions? Can we allow 5 minutes per person? It will make for a good decision. 15 minutes. Let's do 13 till 12:30. All right, 4 minutes per person. Okay, there you go. You are coming back. How was your discussion group? Good. Oh my gosh, I got disconnected again. Let me have a look. No, I was disconnected before. And so some people put a question in the chat box that I did read, but I can't remember. I'm very sorry, my memory is very short. And so I cannot see that. Yes, what about the diet? I did remember that one, Emilio. And I will talk about that when we talk about being a Mahayanist. Is that all right? I'll do that this afternoon or tomorrow, because it's a good question, and especially what is going on. Maybe I'll talk about it a little bit. Whatever's going on right now in the world, you know. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he says, you know, what we're experiencing is the result of negative karma. No matter how you think about what is going on in the world, this is a result of negative karma. And what is the karma that creates this, that we are locked up, that our freedom is taken away? And he says that is coming from what we have done to the animal world in terms of eating animals, you know, the way we have been treating them. And he talks especially about fish somehow. So, you know, we can say, I mean, in Buddhism, they say, if you do not kill yourself, then you do not engage in the action of killing. But of course, when you eat meat, then you do somehow, you could call that at least a lack of care about another sentient being. For your benefit is more important than the benefit of that sentient being. And then at the same time, you know, without getting into extremes, sometimes people do need some meat for their body to function well. But I do think that if you look into the whole meat industry and how we get the fish out of the oceans and how we torture these animals is horrific. It's horrific. And, you know, I think we should all go and visit these farms and see what is happening there. And I'm sure many people turn away from eating that, you know. And I also think sometimes you see little videos of animals who are extremely happy, you know, that they like hugging human beings, or when they get released or saved from the slaughterhouse, how happy they are when they are in the field and totally free and, you know, they're jumping around. So I think, you know, there are different types of practice. So we have the Buddhist monks who practice what we call Hinayana Buddhism or Theravada Buddhism, which is for the liberation of oneself. And they provide themselves with food by begging. And so when they go around, they should not be having any preference for what is put in the begging bowl, whether that is meat or something else, you know. So when the meat comes to them, they eat the meat. So the Buddha didn't give them any particular restrictions for their food because they fully depend upon others. In the Mahayana tradition, what is practiced in Tibet I do think that the Buddha spoke about not eating meat, but it is not, you know, because we're all different, it is not that you're not allowed to eat meat. And then if you look into the Tibetans, where there is sometimes nothing more to eat than meat, you know, there are hardly any vegetables growing there, no fruit. So then what do? So they did eat meat, they still eat meat, but what they try to do is they try to kill the animals in a kind of compassionate way. They give the animals a good life, they treat them well during their life, but they still kill them for their food. Now being in India, you know, I know the Dalai Lama, he became vegetarian, but then after some time he felt like his body was getting more and more weak, so sometimes now he eats meat. Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he became vegetarian. He offers food to all the monks in Serajay. He offers them vegetarian food, meals. And recently he became a vegan because he felt like we are exploiting animals, you know, by the way we take their milk, we take their eggs, we take all the products that come from animals. So I think it has to do with, you know, so there is not one line. This is how all Buddhists have to be. That doesn't exist. But you do have to think about that. And I do think when you start reflecting more and more of the suffering of animals, that you just cannot partake in taking products from them in the way that you did before. Is that all right, Emilio? So Katrina says, it's amazing to see how connected we all are in our conditioning and experiences. That's wonderful. I always find questions too long to remember while discussing. Okay. I'm back. Especially when you are a people pleaser. I lose the chat when this happens. Really sorry, I'm not sure what is happening.
It's just kicking us out again and again.
It's kicking us out again and again.
Yeah, and I also have blank chat now.
Huh?
I also lost the chat.
Right. So whatever was under the question of Priti, that was the last 2 or 3 questions. Could people put that in again? I didn't see the names. I think there was one from Subo, but I'm not 100% sure. Otherwise, we'll go to the meditation and maybe you can give them in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, I'll talk a little bit more about, we are talking about how I wish myself to be free from suffering. What does it mean, freedom from suffering? So we looked into the suffering of suffering. How can I free myself from the suffering of suffering? And in terms of that, we looked into karma and we looked into the delusions. And then we still need to look into how can I free myself from the suffering of conditioned existence? Because that is underlying all that. And I'll just give you some information on that. And I know that I cannot give you the whole thing because it is, I can talk about that for days. But I can give you the essence and so that you know a little bit and then you can read about it yourself and then maybe follow teachings in the future on that topic. Amelia says a suggestion for other people is that after typing their questions, they copy them. So when you get kicked out, they can paste them back into the chat and not retype them. Yeah, because also you might forget the question. You put it in there, you think it is safe, and then it is not. So that's a good idea. Thank you for that. Okay, it might be that I can find them later back into some files that have been saved. I'll have a look right now. Documents. No, I don't see them. No. Okay, so then we do the meditation. Maybe they still come later. If I find them, I'll bring them back this afternoon. So I thought, we are trying to work towards how to open the heart for all sentient beings. And yesterday we started with meditating on the 4 immeasurables. And I thought today to do a meditation on the kindness of others, to generate appreciation for others in the mind. All right, I hear someone. I think maybe I forget something. No. Okay. So the kindness of others can include many sentient beings, many people that we have particular roles with, like, our family, our mother, our father. But this meditation I'm just going to do on the kindness of others who we most likely do not even know personally. But they're still very kind to us, and yeah. So make yourself comfortable for the meditation. Give your mind a few minutes to settle down. And then if you feel the need, adjust your motivation. for doing this meditation. And then we're going to think about the kindness of those who provide us with food, clothing, lodging, and so on. Everything that we have, everything that we use, that we enjoy, including all the things that we need to stay alive, are provided by others. Think about the last meal you ate and all the people who made that meal possible. The farmers who grew the grains and vegetables, others who helped to harvest it, truck drivers who transported it, and people who worked in the factories and markets to process, package, and sell the food. So many people and so many months are required to produce just one plate of food. And if your diet includes meat, eggs, dairy products, then animals are also involved. Most of them probably experiencing suffering in the farms where they lived. And then generate a wish for them to be happy. And keep recalling to mind these sentient beings, human beings, animals. Feel grateful to them and generate a wish for them to be happy. the music and films that we enjoy. And also public services, water, electricity, gas, and so on. Contemplate how we depend on others for all these things. Appreciate the kindness of all those people and wish them to be happy. Each and everything that we enjoy in life comes somehow from others. And then your mind may say, hey, wait a minute, I pay for all these things, so I give that to myself, and actually I am helping them, doing a service for them. And this might be true, but then you can think, where does my money come from? Did you have that when you were born? Maybe you got it from your parents. Maybe you inherited money. Or maybe it was given to you by your employer or customers for the work you do. So even the money with which you buy things comes from others. And then you can say, but I worked for that, so I earned it myself. But even for that, you depend upon others. First of all, you depend upon the teachers from whom you acquire the knowledge and skills needed to get a job. You depended on your parents who paid for your education, who took care of you since you were a very little child. You learned music. They paid for all of that. And then you depend upon the employer who hires you. The clients who enable the company to keep running, and so on. Is there anything that you claim to be inherently, rightfully yours without depending on others? Or you might think, but farmers and shopkeepers and so on, they are not working out of kindness for me. They're just working to take care of themselves and their family. So to counteract this thought, you can ask yourself, do I know for sure what is going on in other people's mind, what their motivation is? It is possible that the people who produce the things you use do have an altruistic attitude. And besides that, it doesn't really matter what their motivation is. Our ability to receive benefit from others does not depend on their motivation. For example, the sun does not have the motivation to benefit us. But we receive enormous benefit from the sun. Light, warmth, power, energy for plants to grow, and so on. So even if other people work for their money, work to take care of their family, at the same time, they give their time, they give their energy. Have happiness and only good experiences. And then to conclude the meditation and the session from this morning, we can dedicate all the positive energy that we have generated, reflecting, discussing, meditating. Meditating to, we can dedicate that to all sentient beings, wishing that they find happiness, temporary happiness, ultimate happiness. And that they are all free of all suffering. Thank you very much for being here this morning. I'm really interruptions that we had with the internet. Probably they're working somewhere on the internet, but next session is at 5 o'clock, and I think all the Indians finish working at that